The crystal halls of the Galactic Council stretched endlessly in all directions, their translucent walls humming with the collective thoughts of 1,000 species. At the center of this vast chamber, a single human stood in chains. Captain Sarah. Chen raised her head, dirt and dried blood marking her face like war paint. Around her, towering beings of every conceivable form whispered in languages that sounded like music, static, and wind through glass. She didn't need a translator to understand their tone. Contempt, amusement, pity. "The specimen speaks for its kind," announced Prelate Vorthak, his voice echoing from the crystalline ceiling. The 8-foot insectoid creature's compound eyes reflected Sarah in 1,000 fragments as he leaned forward on his judgment throne. "Tell us, little human, why should we not simply exterminate your species before it spreads further into our galaxy?" Sarah's chains clinked as she straightened. Behind Vorthak, holographic displays showed Earth's location, a tiny blue dot surrounded by red warning markers. Her homeworld had been classified as a Level 2 threat, barely above space debris. "Because," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, "you don't know what we're capable of when we're cornered." Laughter rippled through the council chamber like breaking glass. Counselor Zeph 9, a being of pure energy contained within a humanoid shell, materialized closer to the human prisoner. "Your species has been observed for 3 cycles. You wage war among yourselves over resources as abundant as water. You poison your own atmosphere. You create weapons of mass destruction and point them at your own cities. You are chaotic," added Matriarch Selena, her telepathic voice bypassing Sarah's ears entirely. The ethereal woman's silver form seemed to shift between dimensions as she spoke. "Unpredictable, dangerous to the order we have built." Sarah felt a cold smile touch her lips. "Chaotic, unpredictable, dangerous." She repeated the words slowly, savoring each one. "You say that like it's a weakness." Prelate Vorthak's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Your entire military was defeated in 7 standard hours. Your government surrendered before we even reached your second moon. What could such a primitive species possibly do that would concern us?" Through the crystal walls, Sarah could see the vast armada surrounding the council station. Thousands of ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities, each one carrying enough firepower to crack continents. The Galactic Council had ruled, unchallenged for 10,000 years, maintaining peace through overwhelming force and careful diplomacy. They had never encountered anything like humanity. "Your records are incomplete," Sarah said quietly. "You observed us during peacetime. You saw our cities, our governments, our official militaries." Her chains clinked again as she took a step forward, causing several guards to tense. "But you never looked deeper." "Enlighten us," Vorthak said, his tone suggesting boredom. Sarah's smile widened. "There are 7 billion humans on Earth. You defeated maybe a few million soldiers. Did you really think that was all of us?" For the first time since the trial began, the council chamber fell silent. "Every human child learns to fight before they learn to walk properly," Sarah continued. "We tell stories of underdogs who defeat giants. We worship warriors and celebrate rebels. You call us chaotic, but chaos is our strength. When you can't predict what we'll do, you can't prepare for it." Matriarch Selena's form flickered with uncertainty. "You are bluffing. Your species surrendered. Your leaders begged for mercy." "Our leaders did exactly what they were supposed to do," Sarah said. "They bought us time, and while you've been sitting here, deciding our fate like gods." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "We've been preparing for war." The chamber's crystal walls suddenly flashed red. Emergency alerts began chiming throughout the station. Prelate Vorthak's compound eyes widened as data streams flowed directly into his neural interface. "Impossible," he whispered. On the holographic displays around the chamber, new signals began appearing throughout the galaxy. Not the organized, predictable patterns of established civilizations, but something else. Wild, chaotic bursts of energy. Ships that appeared and disappeared without warning. Attacks on the outer colonies that defied all tactical logic. The sleeping giant has awakened, Sarah said softly, and we're very, very angry. As alarms continued to blare throughout the council station, Sarah Chen stood surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and for the first time in 10,000 years, they looked afraid. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. Chapter 2. First Strike. 3 days after the council session, Commander Marcus Rodriguez crouched in the ventilation shaft of Titan Station, one of the council's most secure military installations. His breathing apparatus was running, on fumes, but he couldn't risk making noise. Through the grating beneath him, he could see Catamaran guards patrolling the corridor. 7-foot reptilian warriors, whose scales could deflect most energy weapons. He wasn't using energy weapons. Marcus checked his watch. In 30 seconds, every human cell across the galaxy would receive the same message. The Council believes we are weak. Show them otherwise. The Galactic Council had made a critical error in their assessment of humanity. They had studied governments, armies, and official structures. They had completely missed the underground networks, the veterans who had never quite adjusted to civilian life, the engineers who built illegal modifications in their garages, and the hackers who treated secure systems like puzzles to be solved. Most importantly, they had missed the simple fact that humans were very good at holding grudges. Marcus's communication device vibrated once. The signal. He dropped through the grating, landing silently behind the first Catamaran guard. The aliens' enhanced hearing was legendary, but Marcus had learned something interesting about their physiology during the occupation. They couldn't hear certain low-frequency vibrations that humans could feel through their bones. The ceramic knife slid between the guard's scales at exactly the right angle. The Catamaran collapsed without a sound. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of installations. Human prisoners who had been written off as broken were suddenly revealing tactical knowledge that shouldn't have existed. Maintenance workers who had been invisible for months were accessing systems they shouldn't have been able to touch. Children, who had seemed traumatized by the invasion, were passing coded messages through their play. On Research Station Nexus 7, Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent 6 months pretending to be a broken woman, grateful for the Council's mercy in allowing her to continue her physics research under supervision. Her Zephyrian overseer, Cal Tesla, found her work on quantum mechanics amusing. Such a primitive species thinking they could understand the true nature of reality. Elena smiled as she initiated the sequence she had been planning for months. Her research into quantum mechanics had actually been something much more practical, learning how to destabilize the exotic matter that powered council ships. "What is that sound?" Cal Tesla asked, his energy form flickering with concern as warning sirens began echoing through the station. "That," Elena said, watching through the observation window as 3 council dreadnoughts suddenly imploded into quantum singularities, "is the sound of your superiority complex collapsing." Meanwhile, in the asteroid mining facility of Kepler 442, a group of human miners had been toiling under brutal conditions for months. Their Thraxian overseers believed that humans were naturally suited for dangerous work, too stupid to understand the risks, too weak to rebel. They were wrong on both counts. Tommy O'Brien, a former demolitions expert who had been unemployed when the invasion began, wiped sweat from his forehead as he placed the last charge. The Thraxians thought they were mining valuable ores. They were actually sitting on top of enough explosive material to crack the asteroid in half. "Tommy," whispered his partner Lisa Kim, a former systems analyst who had been pretending to be a simple laborer. "The evacuation signal just went out. All human workers are reporting to the transport bay for routine health screenings." Tommy grinned. Routine health screenings was code for "get the hell out before everything explodes." As the human workers quietly filtered out of the mining complex, the Thraxian guards noticed nothing unusual. Humans always moved in groups. They were herd animals after all, simple creatures who followed instructions. 20 minutes later, Kepler 442 became the largest fireworks display in the sector. Back on the council station, Prelate Vorthak was receiving damage reports that defied comprehension. In a single coordinated strike, Humanity had somehow damaged or destroyed Council installations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The attacks showed no central planning, no unified command structure, no recognizable tactical doctrine. How is this possible? Vorthak demanded of his intelligence chief, a cybernetic organism known as Unit Prime. They have no ships, no organized military, no communication network we cannot intercept. Unit Prime's optical sensors flickered rapidly as it processed data streams. Analysis suggests a form of distributed warfare previously unknown to Council records. Human prisoners appear to have been establishing independent cells using improvised technology and local resources. Improvised technology? For example, Unit Prime displayed a holographic reconstruction. Station Nexus 7 was destroyed using modified maintenance equipment. The Kepler mining facility was eliminated using the ore processing system itself as a weapon. In 17 separate incidents, humans have repurposed Council technology in ways our designers never intended. Matriarch Selena's telepathic voice cut through the briefing like ice. They are using our own systems against us. How? It appears, Unit Prime continued, that human creativity includes an unusual capacity for seeing alternative applications for existing technology. They do not think in the structured patterns common to most species. Vorthak's mandibles clicked in agitation. You are telling me that their chaos is strategic? Before Unit Prime could respond, another alarm began sounding. This one was different, deeper, more urgent. The kind of alarm that meant something was very, very wrong with the station itself. In her cell, Sarah Chen listened to the panic spreading through the crystalline corridors and allowed herself a small smile. The Council was beginning to understand that they weren't fighting a conventional war. They were fighting humanity's specialty, organized chaos, and the war had only just begun. Chapter 3. The Human Way. Admiral Korathes 9 stood in the war command center of the Council's flagship, the Eternal Unity, watching her career dissolve into tactical chaos. The holographic display before her showed the current state of the war, and it was unlike anything in the military textbooks. Traditional warfare followed patterns. Species fought for territory, resources, or ideological supremacy. They used established tactics, predictable logistics, and recognizable command structures. The Council had perfected the art of defeating such conflicts through superior technology and overwhelming force. Humans, apparently, had never read those textbooks. Report, she commanded, her forearms manipulating different control interfaces. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Vex Call, a young Centaurian with a reputation for analytical brilliance, hesitated before speaking. Admiral, the humans they've occupied Sector 12. Occupied? Admiral Thess9's tail lashed with irritation. With what ships? Our intelligence shows no human fleet in that sector. That's the problem, Admiral. They don't have ships. Not in any traditional sense. The display zoomed in on Sector 12, showing what should have been empty space punctuated by a few mining asteroids. Instead, the asteroids themselves were moving, powered by jury-rigged engines made from salvaged Council technology. Each rock had been turned into a mobile fortress, bristling with weapons that looked like they had been assembled in someone's garage. They're using asteroids as spacecraft, Vex Cole continued. But they're not following any flight patterns we can predict. Each one moves independently, and they seem to coordinate through methods we can't intercept. Admiral Thess9 stared at the display. The asteroid ships were indeed moving, but not in any formation that made tactical sense. Some charged directly at Council positions, others hung back and sniped, still others seemed to be playing some sort of elaborate game of hide-and-seek among the debris fields. What are their objectives? She demanded. That's unclear, Admiral. Yesterday they spent 6 hours attacking an automated cargo convoy, but they ignored a munitions depot that was essentially undefended. This morning they simultaneously hit 17 different outposts, but 8 of those were abandoned research stations with no strategic value. The Admiral's headache was getting worse. Are they trying to establish supply lines? Control hyperspace routes? What? Before Vex Cole could answer, Communications Officer Drath 7 interrupted with an urgent chirp. Admiral, We're receiving a transmission from the human asteroid group. It's addressed to you personally. Put it through. The holographic display shifted to show a rugged-looking human male with grease stains on his jumpsuit and what appeared to be a child's drawing taped to the wall behind him. He was eating something from a can while casually operating multiple control panels with his feet. "Howdy, Admiral," the human said cheerfully. "Name's Jake Peterson, formerly of the Earth Mining Guild, currently captain of the asteroid ship, Sweet. Caroline, hope you don't mind us borrowing your sector." Admiral Thess-9's training hadn't prepared her for this. "You're in violation of Council space. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation." Jake Peterson took another bite from his can and shrugged. "Yeah, about that. See, we were going to withdraw, but then Bobby over on Rockhopper bet us we couldn't. Take out one of your big ships using nothing but mining equipment. And well, Bobby's kind of a jerk, so now it's personal. This is warfare, not a game, says who?" Jake's grin widened. "Nobody gave us a rule book, Admiral. Besides, you guys started it when you decided to judge our entire species like we were lab rats." The transmission cut off, and immediately the Council ships began taking fire from 17 different directions. But instead of coordinated military strikes, it was chaos. Some asteroids rammed directly into Council vessels. Others fired improvised weapons that seemed designed more for psychological impact than actual damage. One ship was somehow projecting human music at volumes that interfered with Council communication systems. "Admiral," Vexcol reported with barely concealed panic, "the humans they're having fun." It was true. Across the galaxy, human resistance cells were treating the war like the ultimate engineering challenge, the biggest game of hide-and-seek ever played, and a chance to get revenge on cosmic bullies all rolled into one. They shared tactics through graffiti, coordinate attacks through children's games, and turned every piece of captured Council technology into something its designers never imagined. On the mining world of Tau Ceti Prime, a group of humans had convinced the local insectoid population that the Council overlords were actually a type of parasitic mind control organism. The insects, who communicated through pheromone trails, were now systematically debugging every Council facility on the planet. In the Vega system, human hackers had infiltrated the Council's automated defense network and reprogrammed it to play an ancient Earth game called Pong, using actual spacecraft as paddles. Council pilots were finding their ships involuntarily participating in what appeared to be a massive sporting event. And in the Deep Space Monitoring Station of Epsilon Eridani, Dr. Sophia Reyes had spent 3 months learning to speak the musical language of the harmonist species. She had then taught them several human songs, including one called "We Will Rock You." The harmonists, who communicated through perfect musical coordination, had decided that this was the most beautiful song ever created and were now broadcasting it throughout their territory as a form of worship. The Council's psychological warfare department was reporting that their own troops were becoming confused, demoralized, and in some cases curious about human culture. Back on the Council station, Prelate Vorthak was reviewing reports that seemed to come from an alternate universe. They turned an entire battle fleet into a recreational activity? "Yes, Prelate," Unit Prime confirmed. "Our ships in the Vega system are now involuntarily participating in what humans call competitive sports. Several of our captains have reported that they are enjoying the experience." Matriarch Selena's telepathic voice carried a note of bewilderment. "How can a species wage war through play? It violates every principle of conflict we understand." In her cell, Sarah Chen heard the confusion in the guards' voices as they discussed the incomprehensible reports coming in from across the galaxy. She had expected this. The Council understood warfare as a serious, organized endeavor conducted by professionals according to established rules. They didn't understand that for humans, the greatest victories often came from people who treated impossible challenges as puzzles to be solved, games to be won, or jokes to be played on a cosmic scale. The war was accelerating, and the Council was beginning to realize they weren't just fighting for control of human space. They were fighting for the right to take themselves seriously in a universe where humans refused to play by the rules. Chapter 4. The Reckoning 6. Months into the war, Prelate Vorthak stood before the emergency session of the full Galactic Council, his compound eyes reflecting the chaos displayed on the chamber's crystal walls. What had begun as a simple extermination order had become the greatest crisis in Council history. The situation, he announced to the assembled representatives of 3,000 species, has evolved beyond our initial projections. The holographic displays showed the current state of the galaxy, and it was barely recognizable. Entire sectors that had been peaceful for millennia were now filled with retrofitted asteroids, jury-rigged space stations, and ships that seemed to have been assembled from spare parts and pure determination. Worse, other species were beginning to mimic human tactics. Counselor Zeph 9 materialized in the center of the chamber, his energy form crackling with agitation. The humans have infected the galaxy with their chaos. The Kepler Mining Consortium has declared independence and is using human tactics against our peacekeeping forces. The Harmonist Collective has... The situation is worse than that, added Admiral Thess 9, her forearms gesturing to different tactical displays. Our military doctrine is based on the assumption that our enemies will behave rationally. The humans have introduced an element of... She paused, searching for the word. Creative insanity that our strategists cannot counter. On the displays, recent battle footage played in bewildering loops, Council dreadnoughts retreating from converted garbage scows, entire fleets disabled by weapons that appeared to be built from kitchen appliances. Most disturbing of all, Council soldiers surrendering to human forces and asking to join them because this looks like more fun. Matriarch Silena's telepathic voice filled the chamber with cold precision. Analysis indicates that human warfare creates a mimetic effect. Other species are beginning to adopt their unpredictable tactics, their technological improvisation, and their apparent enjoyment of conflict. The order we have maintained for 10,000 years is unraveling. From her holding cell deep within the station, Sarah Chen listened to the emergency session through a communication device that shouldn't have worked, but had been modified by her cellmate, a former engineer named Miguel Santos. Miguel had been pretending to be catatonic with grief for 6 months while actually planning the most audacious escape in galactic history. "You hear that?" Miguel whispered, his fingers working on what appeared to be a standard food dispenser, but was actually something much more interesting. "They're scared." Sarah nodded. "They should be. The Council's power was based on everyone believing they were invincible. We've proven that's not true." Through the walls, they could hear Vorthak continuing his report to the Council. Human forces now control or contest 17 sectors. More concerning, they have established what they call the Human Underground Railroad, a network dedicated to liberating prisoners and refugees from Council control. Species that have been subjugated for centuries are beginning to remember what freedom looks like. Miguel's modified food dispenser suddenly projected a holographic display showing the station's security grid. "Almost got it," he muttered. "One more minute and we can show the Council what a real human war looks like." Sarah smiled grimly. The Council had made the mistake of keeping her alive as a symbol, proof that humanity had been conquered. They were about to learn that in human culture, symbols had a tendency to become rallying points. Back in the Council chamber, emergency, Chancellor Zerion Prime, a crystalline being whose species had founded the Council, spoke for the first time in 300 years. His voice resonated through the chamber like breaking glass. "The question before us is simple. Do we escalate to total extermination of human space, or do we negotiate?" The chamber fell silent. Total extermination meant destroying entire star systems, something the Council had never done. It would violate their most fundamental principles, but it might be the only way to stop the human contagion from spreading further. "Extermination may not be possible," Admiral Thess 9 reported reluctantly. "Our intelligence suggests that human populations have been dispersed throughout the galaxy, using stealth technology we still don't fully understand. They appear to have established hidden colonies on planets we've never surveyed, in asteroid fields we've dismissed as barren, and in the empty spaces between stars. They're everywhere and nowhere," Counselor Zeph 9 added. like a virus that has already infected the host. Unit Prime stepped forward, its mechanical voice carrying an unusual note of, "Was that respect?" Analysis of human behavior patterns suggests that total extermination attempts would only intensify their resistance. They appear to become more dangerous when faced with extinction-level threats. "Then what do you recommend?" Sirian Prime demanded. Before Unit Prime could answer, every light in the council chamber suddenly went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing the assembly in red light as alarms began blaring throughout the station. On the central display, a new image appeared. Sarah Chen, standing in what was clearly the station's main computer core, surrounded by human prisoners who were supposed to have been broken and harmless. "Hello, Council," Sarah said, her voice now carrying to every ship in the fleet. "We've been having an interesting conversation about our future. I thought you might want to hear the human perspective." Vorthak's mandibles clicked in panic. How did they escape? How did they access the core systems? Sarah's smile was sharp as a blade. "You kept us in cells designed for species who think like you do. You never considered that we might think of prison walls as just another engineering challenge." Behind her, Miguel Santos was working frantically at a control panel that was sparking and smoking from unauthorized modifications. "Systems are online, Captain. Every human cell in the galaxy is about to get the wake-up call." "You see," Sarah continued, addressing the council directly, "you made the same mistake every bully makes. You assumed that because you could hurt us, you could control us. But humans have a special talent for turning our pain into other people's problems." The displays around the chamber suddenly lit up with new signals. Not dozens this time, but thousands. Human resistance cells that had been dormant, hiding, or pretending to be defeated were suddenly coming online across the galaxy. "This is impossible," Matriarch Silena whispered. "Our occupation forces would have detected organized resistance on this scale." "Your occupation forces were looking for an army," Sarah replied. "But we never built an army. We built something better. We built a family." The truth hit the council like cold space. The humans hadn't been building a military resistance. They had been doing what humans did best: creating communities, sharing knowledge, and taking care of each other. Every human cell was connected not by military hierarchy, but by bonds of kinship, friendship, and shared purpose. "You want to know what makes humans dangerous?" Sarah asked as more and more signals appeared on the displays. "It's not our weapons or our tactics. It's that we never fight alone. Every human you've captured has a dozen friends planning their rescue. Every ship you've destroyed has a crew that somebody loves. Every world you've threatened has become personal to 7 billion, very creative, very determined people." The numbers on the display were still climbing. What the council had thought was a few thousand resistance fighters was actually millions of humans and their allies, all connected by the simple human principle that nobody gets left behind. "So here's our counteroffer," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the galaxy to every council installation, every occupied world, every species that had ever wondered what freedom might feel like. "Leave, all of you. Go back to your own worlds and leave the rest of us alone. Or..." She paused, letting the moment stretch as the displays showed human forces emerging from hiding across 3 spiral arms. "Or we show you what 7 billion humans can do when we're really truly angry." The council chamber had never been so quiet. For the first time in 10,000 years, the masters of the galaxy were facing a species that couldn't be conquered, couldn't be intimidated, and couldn't be reasoned with because the humans had just made it personal. Epilogue. After the storm 1 year later, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Humanity Rising, the first ship built jointly by humans and their former prisoners. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the Kepler system, where asteroid mining platforms now worked alongside Thraxian engineers who had chosen to stay after the Council's withdrawal. The war had ended, not with a climactic battle, but with something much more human. Negotiation, compromise, and the gradual realization that the galaxy was big enough for everyone to find their own way. The final Council fleet just jumped to hyperspace, reported Captain Jake Peterson, now wearing the unofficial uniform of the Human Space Patrol, which looked suspiciously like a modified mining jumpsuit with extra pockets. That's the last of them in our sectors. Elena nodded, watching the distant ships disappear into the star-filled darkness. Any word from the other sectors? Abandoned their traditional pacifism and is now rocking our ships out of hyperspace. Same story everywhere, Jake grinned. Turns out most species were getting pretty tired of the Council's rules. When they saw that fighting back was possible, well, let's just say we weren't the only ones with grievances. Through the ship's communication system, they could hear the chatter of a dozen different species, all working together on projects that would have been impossible under Council rule. The harmonists were teaching human children to sing in mathematical harmonies. The Kepler Mining Consortium was sharing technology with Earth's engineers. The insectoid Kethmaran had become unlikely allies, fascinated by human tactical unpredictability. Dr. Vasquez, called a familiar voice. Sarah Chen entered the observation deck, now wearing the simple uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps. We just received a message from the Council's emergency session. They're requesting a formal peace treaty. Elena raised an eyebrow. After everything that happened? Apparently, they've realized that trying to control humans is like trying to herd cats, Sarah laughed. Very dangerous, very creative cats who make friends with everyone and turn household objects into weapons. Jake snorted. So what did you tell them? I told them we'd consider it, Sarah said, but only if they agree, to our terms. No more judging species. No more deciding who gets to be free. And definitely no more trying to impose order on chaos. Elena looked out at the stars, each one now representing not a target for conquest, but a possibility for discovery. And if they refuse? Sarah's smile was sharp and warm at the same time. Then we remind them that there are 7 billion humans in the galaxy now, and we've all learned a very important lesson about what happens when you corner something that refuses to stay cornered. As if summoned by her words, Miguel Santos appeared in the doorway, his arms full of mechanical components that were definitely not supposed to fit together. Hey, Sarah, you want to see something cool? I figured out how to turn a food replicator into a short-range teleporter. Well, it's more of a food launcher, but the principle is... Miguel, Sarah interrupted gently. What have we talked about regarding experimental modifications to critical ship systems? That they're awesome and I should definitely keep doing them? No. That they're awesome and I should ask permission first? Sarah sighed. Close enough. Elena laughed as Miguel bounded away to continue his latest project. The galaxy would never be the same. But then again, perhaps that was exactly what it needed. Order was useful, but it was chaos that drove evolution, innovation, and the kind of impossible victories that made the best stories. So what's next for humanity? Jake asked, settling into a chair that had been designed for a species with different anatomy, but modified with typical human practicality. Sarah looked out at the stars, each one a potential new home, new adventure, or new friend. Same thing. We've always done, she said. We explore, we learn, we make friends, we take care of each other, and if anyone tries to stop us... She let the sentence hang in the space between stars, full of infinite possibility, and the quiet confidence of a species that had just discovered it could reshape the galaxy through sheer, stubborn determination to be free. In the depths of space, ancient listening posts detected the signals of 1,000 different worlds, all talking to each other in a cacophony of languages, technologies, and ideas that would have horrified the orderly council. To human ears, it sounded like the galaxy, finally learning how to sing. The war was over. The real adventure was just beginning. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, new human colonies were already planning their next impossible victory against whatever challenges the universe might offer. After all, they had learned the most important lesson of all. When humans decide they're going to be free, the universe itself tends to get out of the way. The end.